Imagine a life suspended in the clouds, perched over 1,400 meters above sea level, right on the edge of a sheer vertical cliff. For generations, in this isolated place, the only link to the outside world was scaling a massive rock wall. Using rickety, makeshift wooden ladders, residents carried food, furniture, their children, and even livestock on their backs. It sounds like a scene from a movie, but this is the stark reality of Adalir village in southwest China. Located deep within Sichuan province, in a land of jagged peaks and plunging valleys. About 70 families cling to these slopes in homes of wood and brick. For centuries, they remained cut off from the world, with no roads and no direct link to civilization, enduring a daily existence that most of us would find unimaginable. The only lifeline between Adalir and the valley floor was a terrifying series of structures known as the sky ladders, constructed from wood, ropes, and vines anchored directly into the cliff face. These ladders were narrow, rotting, and dangerously unstable. To reach the nearest market, residents faced an 800-meter vertical drop. It was a journey that could take hours, and with the wind rattling the rungs, every step felt like a gamble between life and death. Every descent was a battle against terror. Every climb, a testament to resilience. Yet, for these villagers, this treacherous trek was simply a part of life. Families braved the abyss for the most basic necessities, like buying salt and cooking oil, or selling their meager harvest. Children followed their parents, learning from a young age to conquer their fear of the void below. Elders recall that when transporting food or live animals, they had to lash the cargo to their bodies to prevent dropping it. Farmers hauled heavy sacks of corn, potatoes, bundles of firewood, and even pigs upon their backs, balancing precariously on the slender rungs. Even major appliances were carried up, step by agonizing step, strapped to villagers' backs as they defied gravity. Every object in this village was paid for with sweat and risk. For many, a single trip required days of mental preparation, with the exhausting return trip always looming. The ancient ladders of rattan and bamboo didn't even cover the entire route. On some stretches of the cliff, villagers had to cling directly to jagged rocks, or grasp at tree roots sprouting from the stone. Every handhold was uncertain, and a single slip meant a fatal fall. In those moments, the courage and grit of these people made the difference between returning home to their families or never coming back. But the greatest challenge was education. Children had to descend these wooden traps just to reach the school at the mountain's base. Guided by their parents, they faced the same mortal dangers as the adults. One misstep could end it all, and the memory of past accidents haunted the community. Many children couldn't return home daily. The climb was too exhausting and simply too dangerous. Instead, they lived in dormitories during the week, only scaling the cliff back to their families on weekends. This early separation was painful, but it was the only way to ensure they had a future. This extreme isolation forced Adelier to be almost entirely self-sufficient, living off whatever the harsh land could provide. The villagers grew their own food, cultivating corn and potatoes on small terraces, carved painfully into the mountainside. Every square meter of soil was precious, and farming here demanded relentless physical labor. They raised pigs, chickens, and goats to survive. However, trading these goods was nearly impossible when transport meant a death-defying climb down to the valley below. As a result, the village economy stagnated. The crops were primarily to feed their own tables, with only a tiny surplus ever making it down the cliffs for sale. This life forged a community of iron will, but it came with immense hardship. Even minor illnesses became life-threatening crises, as reaching a hospital required that same perilous descent. Medical emergencies often ended in tragedy. For the people of Adelier, every journey forced a painful choice: risk the cliffside or go without essential resources. This was existence before the steel ladders arrived. A village suspended in time, surviving on the razor's edge of danger and endurance. In 2016, Adelier's plight captured the world's attention. Heart-stopping images of children climbing the cliffs went viral, and the reaction was immediate. The government stepped in, determined to reduce the daily peril these families faced. The solution was to replace the rotting wood with solid steel structures, bolted deep into the mountain rock. Around 6,000 steel bars were installed, forming a sturdy, continuous staircase, connecting the village to the valley below, stretching more than 2.5 kilometers. The steel ladder transformed a death trap into a path, though it still demands enormous physical exertion. What once felt like a gamble for survival became a predictable, secure journey. Still, this is no ordinary staircase. Hundreds of steps snake up the vertical cliff, demanding stamina and focus. Even experienced hikers find the climb grueling, which only highlights the incredible endurance the villagers have developed over generations. The installation of the steel ladder revolutionized village life. Transporting goods became manageable, opening the door for commerce. Children could attend school without risking their lives daily. Although the trek remains exhausting, families are now able to carry corn, potatoes, livestock, and furniture with relative ease. The climb is still long and hard, but the fear of imminent death has lifted, bringing a collective sigh of relief. With the completion of the steel ladders, Adelier became a symbol of the fight against extreme poverty. The village began attracting journalists, tourists, and officials, all coming to witness this example of triumph over adversity. This attention brought investment, electricity, cell service, and even internet access finally reached this once forgotten settlement. Yet, despite the upgrades, life atop the cliff remains physically demanding. The climb requires youth and vigor. For the elderly residents, the journey is nearly impossible without help. But for the people of Adelier, the difference between the fragile wooden vines and the sturdy steel is the difference between living in fear and having a shot at a safer future. Life in Adelier starts at dawn, as the sun illuminates the deep canyons of Sichuan. Roosters crow, blending with the sound of the wind. sweeping up the cliff face. Subsistence farming is still the heart of the community. Cultivating narrow strips of earth carved into the rock. Every inch is utilized. Fields that seem to hang in midair. These crops feed the families, and now, more easily reach the markets below. But transport is still a challenge, as villagers descend with heavy loads on their backs, finding their rhythm on the steel steps. Alongside farming, livestock is essential, vital for food and that extra bit of income. Many animals are carried down the ladders, a test of strength that city dwellers can barely conceive. The local diet reflects this hardscrabble life. Corn and potatoes made into porridge, in simple cakes. Meat like pork or chicken is a luxury for special occasions. Vegetables grown on the edge round out the meals. Though modest, this food fuels the immense energy needed for farm work and the exhausting climbs that frame their days. School life has transformed. Children still descend the mountain to learn, but the journey is no longer a death wish. With simple uniforms and backpacks, steady steps now define their routine. Many dream of education as their ticket to a wider world beyond the peaks, even if their hearts remain tied to their high-altitude home, with steel ladders and electricity. Modernity is slowly seeping in. Satellite dishes and cell phones connect these families to the global conversation. Yet, the soul of the village remains rooted in simplicity, manual labor, and the tight bonds of neighbors sharing a hard life. For those who call Adelier home, every chore is amplified by the environment. Carrying water, getting goods to market, or just visiting a nearby town demands energy and courage. But the villagers remain steadfast, preserving traditions born high in the clouds. Even with the steel improvements, life here is a daily test of endurance. The path down to the foot of the mountain demands stamina, strength, and balance. For the elderly, it is a monumental effort. For children, it is a risk that still keeps parents on high alert. Healthcare remains a critical vulnerability. Access to doctors is limited, and an emergency means a frantic rush down the mountain, a nightmare scenario in severe cases. For decades, Adelier was known as the poorest village in China. Farming barely scraped by, and the transportation barrier cut them off from any real economic chance. The steel ladder was just the first step. The real battle is against the structural poverty that has weighed them down for generations. The government has included Adelier in broader poverty eradication programs. Some families were offered relocation, receiving new apartments in towns closer to services. These changes, naturally, have divided the community. Some cling to their ancestral soil, while others see moving as the only way to give their children a safer, easier life. Today, Adelier stands at a crossroads between ancient tradition and inevitable modernity. It remains an icon of isolation, where humans scale cliffs just to touch the world. But it is also opening its doors to new possibilities, with a younger generation dreaming of progress to bring back to their families. The story of this place proves that life can flourish, even in the most extreme conditions. Once invisible to us, this village now inspires millions with its courage. So ask yourself, could you live where the path to buy food, go to school, or see a doctor is an 800-meter staircase carved into a cliff? Leave your thoughts below. Don't forget to like, share with friends, and subscribe to the channel. We'll keep bringing you stories of communities that defy logic and thrive in places few would believe possible.